up with the night owls making our city buzz from sunset to sunrise grâce à ce podcast officiel de la ville d'Ottawa, présenté par le Bureau de la vie nocturne. Good evening, Ottawa. My name is Zoe Argyropoulos-Hunter, and you're tuned in to Ottawa at Night at FONO in the heart of Centretown. Pour cet épisode de ce podcast du Bureau de la vie nocturne de la ville d'Ottawa, j'ai le plaisir à présenter Matt Beausoleil, critique gastronomique et personnalité de la télé influente. Même le chef Gordon Ramsay est parmi de ses abonnés sur Instagram. Adam Vettorel, chef and co-owner of Northern Navy and Cantina, and the host of his own podcast, At the Pass. And finally, Matías Muñoz, owner of FONO and longtime champion of Ottawa's music scene. Gentlemen, welcome et bienvenue to Ottawa at Night.
Merci.
Thanks for having us.
Matt, quel établissement gastronomique qui te marque, même encore après toutes ces années?
Quand même drôle, puis pas à cause qu'il est ici avec nous autres, mais honnêtement, Northern Navy, c'est un des restaurants parmi les meilleurs que j'ai apprécié depuis mon arrivée à Ottawa. Donc, je suis très content de dire ça, mais c'est vrai. J'ai pas été payé pour ça.
C'est gentil.
Je te garantis, mais c'est bien.
And Adam, what would you say is the vibe of Ottawa kitchens right now? Are we in a creativity era or a comfort era?
There's a combination going on. There's a bunch of different restaurants that are opening that I would definitely call on the creative side. Anthea is getting a lot of attention right now, and that's like a fermentation driven kitchen, which is like, you know, sort of all the rage right now and like cutting edge trend. And then another restaurant that's getting a lot of plaudits, and rightfully so, is Rafael, which is Peruvian cuisine. So that's just like, you know, a bunch of incredible flavors that you wouldn't expect to be tasting in Ottawa. So there's a little bit of that, but then also sort of the standbys that seem to last. Places like the Manx has been all around forever, and kind of that's one of those like if you know you know sort of places, and that's just pure comfort, just a great place to have a pint, glass of scotch, and really good food.
Yeah, good collection. And Matías, what's a current favorite record that's on rotation at FONO?
I mean, been playing the Fan Club Wallet, the new Fan Club Wallet record quite a bit. I actually got Andrew Vincent and the Pirates up there as well, behind the DJ booth on display. That's actually a record that's not even on Bandcamp or Tidal, I don't think, or Spotify. So a lot of great Ottawa music. I have a ton of local records, so I'm excited to get them up there and get people listening.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, merci à vous trois de me rejoindre ce soir. I thought we'd start by stirring the pot with the night quiz, Ottawa Food and Drink Edition. Vos buzzers sont prêts? Et vous? Question number 1. Which Ottawa restaurant recently ranked on Canada's 100 Best Restaurant list?
I think you got first.
Anthea.
I'm going to have to give this one to Matt.
Hey.
Question number 2. Which one of these is not yet a food trend in Ottawa? Is it A, natural wine bars, B, late night tasting menus, or C, drive-through fine dining?
It's got to be drive-through fine dining.
Unfortunately, not yet a trend here in Ottawa.
Well, when is that going to
happen? Yeah, that's going to be something that should happen.
I mean, I don't know. I'm looking to you three.
What does that even look like?
I don't know. There's a parking lot behind Northern Navy. Maybe we just open a window.
Yeah. They just give you a little napkin, you put it over your steering wheel, and it's fancy.
Yeah. Hand it out the back door.
That's all we need. I regret even saying that.
Question numéro 3. Quel quartier d'Ottawa est devenu un véritable hotspot pour les restos indépendants et les bars à vin ces dernières années? Est-ce que c'est A, Westboro, B, Hintonburg, ou C, Orléans?
We'll say Hintonburg.
Another one for Matt.
Well, you had a 33% chance to get it right. So, I mean,
This is literally his job, though.
yeah.
Question number 4. Blank is a fine dining restaurant located in a 19th century bank building. A, Becta, B, Stofa, C, Riviera.
C, Riviera.
Woo!
Hey!
Correct.
Go
Yeah,
Adam.
I had that one. I was about to abuse that chicken.
Et maintenant, c'est temps pour la dernière question. Question numéro 5. Avant de dévoiler sa grande rénovation et son bar élargi en 2019, Club Soul était connu pour vendre presque exclusivement quelle boisson lors des spectacles. Est-ce que c'était A, Dominion City Town and Country, B, Steam Whistle Pilsner, ou C, Beau's Lug Tread?
Town and Country.
Nope.
Beau's Lug Tread.
Nope.
The other one. Dumb City.
Non, c'était Steam Whistle Pilsner.
Steam Whistle, really? It saw?
Yeah.
I don't
didn't know
remember
that.
Back in the good old days. Yeah, I'm sure. I worked there.
Yeah, no, you would know.
Well, we have a winner. Clairement, c'est Matt, quelqu'un qui a fait ses devoirs avec peut-être un peu d'expérience. You'd be the right person to give a food and beverage tour of Ottawa.
Probablement.
Now that we're all warmed up, who's ready for what I'd like to call the Midnight Snack Challenge?
Let's
Sounds
go.
down my alley,
Intéressant,
for sure.
ça. Oui, on y va.
For this next segment, I'd like all three of you to imagine that you've come home from a night out, or maybe a late night shift, and suddenly your tiredness is completely quashed by a stroke of creative genius. You have these random ingredients at your arsenal, and you've decided to embark on creating a brand new dish. I've chosen ingredients that I believe to be quintessential Ottawa. On a le sirop d'érable, des pommes, cheese curds, shawarma-style chicken, and potatoes.
All right.
Vous avez
Very
quelques
well.
minutes pour imaginer vos œuvres culinaires et après, vous allez les présenter à vos collègues du podcast. Le chrono démarre maintenant.
What would we do with this? What are you going to do with it, Matt?
I can't tell you what I'm going to do with
Okay,
it.
my bad.
You
You got
I
any
can.
ideas?
I
I
can.
got some ideas.
Can.
That's looking like the beginnings of a poutine, I think.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I won't steal your idea. I think that's...
Sick. We won't all do it, though.
Okay, that's time. Adam, what's cooking?
I'm going to go pretty rich. I'm going to make pomme aligot, which is like a really high-end, like Michelin star style mashed potatoes, where you do like 50-50 cheese and potato. So they're very runny and stringy. Is that what you were going to do?
Yeah, I still
sorry.
am. I still am. It's okay.
And
Okay.
I'll
then
do my own take.
once I have my mashed potatoes, I'm going to cover them in the shawarma chicken, obviously. And then I'm going to mandolin with like julienne apples on top and cover that in maple syrup and get a little sweet and salty going on at the same time.
Wow.
It's a pretty good after the bar snack.
Impressive. I don't know if I'd be able to come up with that at like 3 o'clock in the morning. Matías, what's cooking?
I mean, I'm just looking at that plate and I'm getting hungry just looking at it. But
Don't touch the curds.
yeah,
Don't touch the
those
curds.
curds are looking at me. You know, I'm not gonna go as fancy as you. I don't have as my like food chops aren't as impressive as yours, but I just think a giant plate of poutine with, I think having the apple in there and some maple syrup is actually really interesting. Like maybe you could make like a toum or like a garlic. Yeah, you could incorporate garlic in there somehow too, but a giant plate with some little hit of apple, I'm thinking like cubes of apple.
Oh, nice.
And yeah, a little maple syrup. Why not? Like that's so Ottawa. That should be a thing.
Yeah, there's very rare you can put maple syrup on something and it ruins it.
Yeah,
It's like
exactly.
always pretty good.
Yeah.
Ben moi, je travaille en gastronomie, donc moi, même si je mange tard le soir, je vais manger quelque chose de très bien. Mais oui, en fait, je vais faire des pommes aligot aussi, comme notre cher ami Adam a dit avant moi. Donc, 50% des patates, 50% fromage. Tu sais, vraiment, tu vas chercher le cheese pull dans tes patates, c'est incroyable. Ensuite, moi, je vais prendre le poulet shawarma. Je vais le griller croustillant et je vais ensuite mettre le sirop d'érable sur le poulet. Donc les épices, le salé avec le sirop d'érable, on va aller chercher le sucré et salé avec les épices. Quand même la même idée. Puis avec les pommes, je ferais une gastrique de pommes, une petite sauce acide pour amener, on a le sel, le sucre, l'acidité, le croustillant. Donc, on va chercher vraiment beaucoup de composantes d'un plat qui a beaucoup de succès.
J'aimerais manger tous vos plats. Merci à vous trois. Well, now that we're all hungry, why don't we feed our souls with a friendly night chat and maybe get rid of this?
Excellent.
Donc, parlez-moi de vos débuts dans vos milieux respectifs. When did you decide to go against the grain and maybe pursue a less quintessential Ottawa career path? Matt, est-ce qu'on peut commencer avec toi?
Honnêtement, moi, comme tu as mentionné au début, j'ai commencé sur les médias sociaux. Je voulais vraiment soit étudier en informatique ou en cuisine. C'était vraiment les deux passions que j'avais. Puis j'ai décidé d'aller en informatique. Puis je travaille là-dedans encore le jour. Mais j'ai décidé de faire les médias sociaux avec ma bouffe. Donc, je faisais des plats. Puis, en fait, sur Twitter, à ce point-là, ça fait quoi? Là, je me rends vieux, là, mais j'avais, je pense, début vingtaine. Puis, j'ai commencé à faire des plats sur Twitter. Puis, j'ai été découvert par Gordon Ramsay, qui s'est abonné à moi. Puis, il mettait mes plats en vedette sur son Instagram, son Twitter à ce point-là. Puis il mettait mes plans en vedette et j'ai commencé avec une audition VIP à MasterChef Canada la première saison.
Wow.
Puis de là, j'ai fait 3 saisons. J'ai fait des stages avec des grands restaurateurs. J'ai cuisiné à l'ambassade de la France. J'ai fait beaucoup de temps dans la cuisine. J'ai appris beaucoup de techniques comme ça. J'ai jamais étudié à l'école comme tel, mais j'ai eu beaucoup d'apprentissage dans le domaine et des grands chefs renommés. Donc, ensuite, j'ai mangé un souper une fois avec quelqu'un, puis ils m'ont demandé des questions sur le plat. J'ai donné des commentaires, puis c'était un propriétaire de restaurant, puis il dit tiens, je te donne 500$. Il dit tu connais ton stock, tu devrais changer le monde pour faire ça. Et j'ai devenu un critique technique. Je travaille sur le plan national et international.
Wow, super cool. What about you, Adam? How did you become a restaurateur of 2 favorite Ottawa stops, but then also a podcast host?
The podcast was a decision made during the pandemic. So it probably wouldn't have happened if I wasn't going crazy during the pandemic. But in terms of restaurants, it wasn't the plan to be a chef or to work in restaurants. But I was working in restaurants to pay my way through university. So my plan was law school, and that's where I was headed. And but I had a mentor who was a lawyer, and he was also a foodie, and we met because he was always eating at the restaurant that I was working at the time. And so he was sort of the one that gave me the advice to I confided in him that, especially towards the end of my schooling when I was not working in restaurants as much because my studying was taking up all my time, that I was missing the kitchen a lot. And so he was the one who gave the advice that law school will always be there. And if I wanted to make a push to be a chef, I would have to start now. And so I decided to follow his advice, and I did, and haven't looked back since. Well, I've looked back like at least 1,000 times, but no.
What about you, Matías? Did you get any persuasive advice to go into the music industry?
You know, it was not a straight path to the music industry. I studied political science. I'm from London, Ontario. I went to Western. I moved here thinking I was going to get into politics or, work for an NGO or something. Those kind of, I was kind of naive and thought that Ottawa was really where it's at for everything, and it is for a lot of things in that way. But I quickly realized that my passion isn't working for the government or public service, or I kind of see what I do as a public service in a different way. And I started as a music blogger. I actually just started going to shows in Ottawa. I started getting engaged with the music community. I started buying merch. I started meeting bands. I started writing about bands on Ottawa Showbox. I literally started just a little WordPress blog and gained traction really fast. Got some Twitter followers, got some readership locally. And then from there, started putting on shows once in a while, became a promoter through Ottawa Showbox, and then opened up a DIY venue with a few buds in 2019 called Sinkhole. And unfortunately, only lasted about 7 months or so before the pandemic hit in 2020, which, hurt everybody a lot. And so we had to close that down. But I learned a lot from that experience and all of those experiences, really. And met you. And we putting on shows really brought me a sense of joy because, you get to not only support musicians and support people doing really cool stuff in town, but finding interesting spaces to do shows, whether that's Mugshots back in the day, Jail Hostel, or Under a Bridge on Bronson, seeing a punk show there, Ottawa Explosion. There was just so much interesting, hyper local stuff that was happening that, the broader music industry didn't necessarily care about, but we were making it our own. And Ottawa's got some really awesome stuff happening and still does.
Tell me about a moment in your careers thus far that is truly an Ottawa moment that has been really defining for you.
I'm thinking, I don't know why, I'm going right to Ottawa Explosion and just having all your buddies there, crowd surfing in a very thin group of people. There's probably 20 or 25 people, and you're at Club Saw crowd surfing, and you're all just having the best time. And maybe it's a band that's coming through, or maybe, but like you're just with all your best friends, and it's like 2017 or something, and we're just having the best time. And I think that appreciating Ottawa for what it is and enjoying the people that are here and the things that are happening here has been to me that is Ottawa. It's like we all live here, we all love this place, and we all know what's up. So yeah, crowd surfing my buds. I'm usually the one underneath holding people up because I'm the tall guy. So
Matt, est-ce que les critiques gastronomiques participent du crowd surfing?
Non, pas vraiment, non. Je donne pas des critiques sur où ce que j'ai mis ma main, c'était-tu tendre ou moelleux, ou y avait-tu des muscles. Mais non, moi je dirais que un des événements le plus marquants pour moi dans la scène culinaire, je veux dire dans l'événementiel, c'était un événement qui s'appelait Canada's Table. La tablée du Canada, je crois, qui était sur la rue Wellington, une longue table de 1000 personnes, un souper avec des chefs locaux. Et c'était vraiment quelque chose de très spécial, très différent, et quelque chose qu'on fait dans une capitale nationale. Donc, c'était vraiment exceptionnel.
Oui, ça me marque comme une image, même dans ma tête.
Exact. C'est vraiment spécial.
Adam, what about you? What was a pinnacle moment that was so Ottawa in your career so far?
There's been a bunch of like small ones, just because like we were talking earlier, I studied political science, and owning a restaurant in Ottawa, you get to see a lot of the figures in politics that and often right after something big happens. So sometimes there'll be a budget will drop, and then a bunch of members of the party that dropped the budget, or a bunch of members of the opposition party who weren't happy about the budget show up, and so we get to see the sort of like gloves off moments of and we get to see often politicians from rival parties interacting in our dining room, and that's always interesting. Sometimes big moments like when Ukraine got invaded and Tony Blinken, the Secretary of State, came to Canada. He had dinner with Justin Trudeau and Melanie Joly in our dining room, so they had a big important conversation, I imagine, maybe earlier, but afterwards had dinner and stuff. So sometimes it feels like history is happening in the dining room, and I'm catering it. And so moments like that feel like you're part of like the fabric of Ottawa, because when people use Ottawa sometimes derogatorily as like in other parts of the country, like, oh, this happens in Ottawa, but a lot of it does happen in Ottawa. And so sometimes it happens at the great restaurants in Ottawa. And so those always make me feel really connected to the city when there's big things like that. And another night I remember is when Shopify went public, and suddenly Ottawa had like, I forget what the number was, but it was like 30 new millionaires or something like that. Like all of these young people who had been in from the ground floor. And suddenly our dining room is just full of these like young people who were like celebrating, like all of their hard work turning into money they probably never thought they'd ever have. So that was also a big, very like a moment that was significant for our city, but kind of happened under the roof of the restaurant. So those are a couple big ones.
Yeah, we take for granted the things that happen behind the scenes of these moments in history. And I'm wondering, for the three of you at the table, how do you feel that Ottawa's food or music scenes are elevating the reputation of our city?
There's bands that tour. There's bands that find places to crash. They bring their music to other cities. They travel North America. They meet other bands, and there's been bands that obviously have toured for a long time in Ottawa, but like right now there's a lot of young bands that are getting out there, and even given the state of things south of the border, or people are still working hard and doing the thing that we hope never dies, which is making music and hitting the road, grinding hard. And it is such a grind in so many ways to start a band and try and make it and try and do it right, but not lose your creativity and not lose your sense of why you started it in the first place, And I just see a lot of, especially young bands, I'm just always impressed that like Ottawa bands are finding awesome places to play and making great music, and oftentimes just need some support, like need some fair places that don't charge them an arm and a leg to play a show, or to sell their merch or whatever. So yeah, I mean, I do think bands hitting the ground hard and continually putting their stuff out there, and sometimes it resonates and people listen, and there's a few that have gone pretty big on TikTok, or they fill places in other cities, and that's pretty cool to see.
Moi, de mon côté, je pense vraiment que la scène gastronomique de la ville d'Ottawa, c'est vraiment, ça monte. On monte vraiment une colline. On voit la qualité de restauration qui augmente à chaque jour. Les restaurants qui cherchent vraiment à se distinguer, à créer des plats et des innovations comme Anthea de Brianna Kim. Puis aussi les classiques, les restaurants classiques comme Northern Navy, puis même des petits restaurants comme G-Burger, The Manx. Il y a beaucoup d'options pour manger le jour, le soir. Puis on voit vraiment que la qualité monte, puis c'est très important. Puis on discutait de ça tantôt, mais notre clientèle sont bien plus connaissants de la restauration, puis la scène dans la cuisine à cause des émissions de télé. Et on voit vraiment que à cause que nos clients sont plus éduqués de ce sens-là, les restaurants ils ont besoin d'être à un niveau un peu plus élevé, puis être plus présent, puis être plus ouvert. Puis comme Adam, tu disais tantôt, tu vas servir souvent le plat principal dans ton restaurant, mais cette expérience-là pour un client, c'est incroyable. Puis je vois que ça augmente la qualité vraiment à Ottawa. Présentement, c'est vraiment en croissance, donc c'est super.
In Ottawa right now, there is so many great restaurants, and they don't collectively, we don't always get recognized sort of outside of the city, and the city kind of has a chip on its shoulder for that reason, the culinary scene anyways, that sometimes we, the big three cities, Vancouver, Toronto, and Montreal seem to get all the attention all the time, and it's not that they don't deserve it, because they have great restaurants too, but it does seem like there's a lot of Ottawa chefs really pushing and making great food, and not just making great food, but telling great stories with their businesses. Like, there's really well thought out concepts in Ottawa, which put it, to be fair to people from the outside who maybe are dismissing the city, it's because we didn't always have that. There was sort of like some borderline French cuisine shoehorned into like a dining room that didn't really make sense for it. And there was a lot of that going on in Ottawa, a lot of goat cheese, and goat cheese is great. I'm not trying to say it's not, but yeah, just we were playing catch up for a long time, but I think we've caught up, and
absolutely.
And so I'm just proud when I go out to dinner with and I love the opportunity when people come from out of town to take them to some of my favorite spots, and they don't always have to be the big expensive fine dining spots. They can be more casual spots, neighborhood spot, like can't miss it, supply and demand. You can't miss it. There's Arlo's just like one of the coolest spots. Could drop it right into Montreal tomorrow and it would just be fine. Like, there's so many good spots in Ottawa. So the idea that this is the city that is sort of meat and potatoes is sort of reputation that's, in my opinion, long gone.
I'm gonna go on record here and say that the next couple of years is going to be a big change. There's going to be a big swing in the recognition of Ottawa restaurants outside of Ottawa. I think that the growth is just exponential, and like you're saying, every restaurant you go out to, there's great spots. There's great spots that have not, people don't know about them necessarily outside of the city, and there's not enough recognition for our restaurants in Ottawa, and like that's going to change in the next couple of years. It has to change, and I mean, if we'll be at the forefront.
Yeah, I'll be.
Are you in?
I'll be cooking. I'll cater it.
Yeah, there you go. There you go.
I like the energy that we're all like reaping the rewards of this renaissance. So thank you three for those opinions in this friendly night chat. We're going to move on to our final segment for tonight. C'est pas un épisode de Ottawa la nuit sans quelques hot takes sur le micro. Alors, on va passer à un petit jeu de this or that pour compléter cet épisode. Okay, so to start, choose a noodle, pho or ramen. And this is not the time to be polite. We're not at the dinner table. Please interrupt each other.
Ramen.
I love ramen, but I'm going to say pho.
Okay.
I'm going to say pho.
I mean, that's a tough choice. That's a real Sophie's choice. That's tough stuff.
It depends if I'm feeling for richness or for...
Okay, moving to the next one. Pelfo intime ou un festival en plein air?
Plein air.
Intimate performance, because I'm a performer too.
No, festival outdoors. Get to party with your friends.
There you go.
Outdoors.
I don't know. This is an amazing venue in the back room of FONO that just entices me.
Yeah, you're like, oh man,
it entices me.
Scoring some brownie points over there. How about tasting menu or a la carte?
Depends who's cooking.
Yeah, truth.
Yeah, tasting menu. If you really trust the chef, then that's obviously the right choice, because then you don't have to make any more choices.
I'm going to just toss a wrench into that and say a la carte with chef recommendations.
That's just a tasting menu. Come on.
It's not, because it's full
I don't want to
portions.
think about it. I just give me
I want
the
more
best that you
food.
got. Yeah.
How do we remedy a long slew of night shifts? Are we going to Gatineau for a hike or spa day?
Spa day. I like a spa.
Gatineau for a hike or snowboarding if it's the winter.
Snowboarding was an option, but I like that you're thinking
it's
about
too
your
much.
It's in
physical
Gatineau.
fitness.
It's
Okay.
too much work. It's too much
Moi, je vais prendre le spa.
Okay.
Ouais.
Moi aussi. On peut aller ensemble.
Mais...
So, thank you three for joining me today on this episode of Ottawa at Night. Before we sign off, what are we doing after this and who's responsible for the menu?
We're going across the street to Perfect Meatball to find out just how perfect that meatball is.
And maybe we should get some Negronis. We've been talking about those for a while now.
Yeah, I would go to maybe Paper Tiger and then head up House of Targ after.
Oh, that's a good call.
Oh, that's-
See, I
that's
didn't
even
realize
better
we're
call.
curating like.
Yeah, we're curating an
That
experience
sounds like
tonight.
a fun thing to do.
Yeah,
after
that
this.
sounds awesome.
That sounds like...
They're right beside each other.
Exactly.
Story writes itself. Those are
Exactly.
great spots. Yeah, I'm going with him.
Yeah, we're with him.
Yeah.
You're invited too.
Yeah, you can go.
I will happily join you at the Perfect Meat Bowl as a vegetarian.
We gotta find out.
Ben, merci encore, Matt, Adam, et Matías pour me joindre ici à FONO pour Ottawa At Night. Any parting words for our audience at home?
Don't stop going to shows and buy merch.
That's good.
Moi, je veux dire la même chose, c'est que c'est très important de supporter nos entreprises locales, que ce soit l'industrie de la musique, l'industrie de la cuisine, les restaurants, vraiment de supporter les gens qui travaillent, qui ont fabriqué quelque chose ici, parce que c'est très important que ça reste comme ça et que ça soit en évidence.
My advice would be to go to the farmers markets because all of the farmers that we buy from as chefs also have stalls at the farmers markets, and they're not cheap for them to rent the stalls. So go support them there, and then it makes our life easier to get beautiful local produce into our restaurants too.
Happy farmers market season.
Yeah.
True.
Stay connected with the Ottawa Nightlife office at ottawaatnight.ca and on Instagram at OTTNightWe. Comme vous avez probablement remarqué, nous utilisons le français et l'anglais comme c'est toute la coutume ici à Ottawa. And if you're looking for a completely accessible version of this podcast, you can go to the City of Ottawa's YouTube channel. And to learn more about accessibility, visit ottawaatnight.ca/podcast.